Fayetteville, a unique and diverse community with numbers of interesting people who reside here or just pass through. Fayetteville Open Channel now highlights some of these individuals in This Is Fayetteville. And here's your host, Nese Nemec.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us. Tonight's program is part of Fayetteville Open Channel's Focus Summer Festival. Even though there are many people on the Warner cable system who can and do watch FOC, Open Channel still contends with many people who don't know who we are, or what it is, or what we do, or who is involved, or who can be involved. For that reason, my guest this evening is Larry Miller, our general manager here. Hello, Larry.
Hi.
How you doing? Jinx on a Coke. That's an old Arkansas thing.
Well, it's around.
It is, in California too?
Oh, everywhere.
You were just in California, huh?
That's right.
Did you fly in?
Just flew in from the coast, and boy, are my arms tired.
Yeah.
We got that joke in too.
All right. It is kind of hot in here, isn't it? Larry, I really would like for you, if you would please, to explain exactly what is public access TV. You know, why is it here? How did it get started? And what purpose does it serve?
Okay. Well, public access TV is really a function of the cable television phenomenon, which started in the 50s. Initially, it started in areas like Fayetteville, which were kind of distant from major metropolitan areas where you had broadcast television. So in an effort to bring Tulsa and Fort Smith and Joplin and other TV sources in, a cable company was formed in the early 1950s. And Fayetteville was actually one of the very earliest cities in the United States to have cable TV. Well, somewhere along the line, people began to realize that since this was cable television, not broadcast, it was possible to make local programs and put them out over the cable without actually having to go through the very expensive process of having a broadcast television tower and getting an FCC license and so forth. So through this cable that literally hooks all the television sets in an area together, people began developing local programming, and the idea of public access is to make equipment and the cable available to people in the community so that they can do their own messages and make their own local programs. So that's the idea of cable television. Here in Fayetteville, it began in 1979. There was a group that incorporated and struck a deal with the cable company to allow for channel space for the programs to go out. And Fayetteville Open Channel has been around for over 7 years now. And in this public access game, that really is quite a long time.
What about around the nation? Is Fayetteville Open Channel new in the field of public access, or old, or medium?
Well, in one sense, Fayetteville has a very long history of local programming. Norman DeMarco, who was a communications professor at the University of Arkansas, was doing educational programming over the cable system here in Fayetteville in the mid-50s. So as far as local programming, we have quite a long history. As far as Fayetteville Open Channel goes, as I said, 1979 was the incorporation, 1980 was the first programming. And Fayetteville is recognized as being one of the successful cable operations in the United States. There are some places that began earlier. Austin, I believe, began in 1972. But if you're over 5 years old and surviving as a public access station, then you're doing something right, because it's difficult to get it going, and there are a lot of places where there are channel allocations for public access but no programming. So at least we have programs going out here.
Right, and there are local programs for the people. Well, FOC is an independent, nonprofit, incorporated organization. What does that mean exactly, Larry?
Okay, well, that's part of that's just a legal process. To be incorporated as a nonprofit requires that some bylaws are developed for the organization, some officers are appointed or elected, and there's a general form that's filled out and filed with the Arkansas Secretary of State, I believe. And so that process was gone through in the early 79 era, and Fayetteville Open Channel became an incorporated nonprofit organization. Now, the independent part of it is that Fayetteville Open Channel is independent in the sense that it's not directly connected with the university, with the school system, with the city, as other access centers are. There are access centers that are run out of just a university or out of a church or out of a school system or even out of a city, municipal organization. But Fayetteville Open Channel is wholly independent of all organizations such as that.
Are there very many other public access television stations that are independent?
Well, not as many as you might think, really. Although the trend now is to go to being an independent. There are some distinct advantages to being independent for the cable companies. Many cable companies have started their own access channel, and they have to manage it and so forth. And they become involved in the day-to-day operations of that, and really they're not fixed up to do that. So in many cases, for example, Dallas, Texas is a big example. Originally, the people that worked for the public access down there were all employees of the cable company. Now they're in the process of forming this independent nonprofit organization, and the employees that are involved in access are going to work for it instead of the cable company.
Right. Well, what factors do almost all public access television stations have in common?
Well, the biggest thing is the type of programming that's put on. It's local programming. It's programming that's done by amateurs. It's people that are in your neighborhood. It's your friends. It's your people that you work with. These are the people that are making the shows. Consequently, some of the quality that you might see on a program may not be up to the standards of NBC or something like that. But on the other hand, the shows that they make are fascinating. It really is programs that are of local concern, and that's the real advantage of access TV. Right now, there are about 1,000 access centers across the United States. Some of them are only running a character generator screen that says this is an access center, and some of them are putting on lots of programming. Austin, Texas has 3 channels of access programming, and they're filled with programs that are made strictly by the people in the community.
Well, I know that other access centers, public access TV stations, do have more than one channel that they put programming on. How are those channels usually divided up?
Well, frequently in access TV, there's this term that's called PEG, P-E-G, and it kind of lumps the type of programming into 3 categories. There's public access, which are the programs that are made by people in the community or by organizations in the community. The E is for education, and these could be colleges or they could be school systems. They're doing programming of their own or getting it from other places. In some cases, they're using the cable as a distribution system so that kids in classes all over an area can watch a show at a particular time. Then the G of the PEG thing is government, and there are many cities that are heavily involved in producing their own cable programming as part of their regular public information effort. Here in Fayetteville, Fayetteville Open Channel actually serves as all 3 of those. And I think for Fayetteville, that's a decided advantage right now. There really isn't need to have 3 channels. We don't have that much programming to put on. The city of Little Rock has 7 access channels allocated for access. But if you go down there and look at TV down there, you'll just see character generators that says, this is the Fine Arts channel, this is the Minority channel, this is the Public Education channel. The only 2 channels that are really getting any use are the University of Arkansas at Little Rock and the municipal channel that's operated by the city of Little Rock. So having a lot of those channels can work in your favor if you've got enough programming to put on, but if you don't have that much programming, then you might as well have 1 channel. Incidentally, right now there's about 10,000 hours of programming a week that's being generated by local sources. And if you figure what the networks do...
You mean nationwide?
Nationwide, that's right. The networks are doing maybe 30 hours of new stuff. You know, I'm not counting soap operas, for example,
okay.
but let's talk about nighttime programming. There's not that much. And compared to the very limited amount of programming that network TV is doing, I think it's very impressive to have 10,000 hours every week of new community programming.
That is pretty amazing. Well, to get back to what most public access TV stations have in common, don't almost all public access TV stations offer workshops, training workshops for people so that they can learn how to use the equipment?
That's a big part of most access centers. Is television is a amazing technology, really, but it's also fairly complicated, and you can't just have somebody wander in, take a camera out, and do anything that's significant. They have to be trained in how to use the equipment, both from the point of view of the technical thing of push this button, hook this to that, and how do you construct a show? How do you build a show? What formats are available and that sort of thing. So most access centers do as Fayetteville Open Channel does, and we offer training workshops for people in the community to come in and find out what it's all about.
All right. Well, what do you see as the major difference between Fayetteville Open Channel and most other public access TV stations, or is there a major difference?
Well, that's a little hard to get at because, well, for example, last fall I did a survey of about 30 other cable systems that are affiliated with Warner Cable. And I got these questionnaires back, and my conclusion was that, boy, everyone operates a little bit differently. In some places, the funding level that is available is such that all equipment and all workshops are free. That's a trend that's disappearing. It's sad to say, really. But the similarity is greater than the differences, and the similarity is the kinds of programs that people do.
Well, you recently attended a conference in San Francisco of the National Federation of Local Cable Programmers, acronym NFLCP.
Right.
What is the NFLCP?
Well, the NFLCP is a kind of an umbrella organization of places like Fayetteville Open Channel, but it's broader than that. One of the kinds of local programming that's become very popular is a form that's called local origination. And this is where the cable company actually has their own channel, and you may see advertising on it. That's very common, but still they're doing a lot of local programming. So the NFLCP, and that is a very unwieldy title, but that's what they called themselves, they were formed 10 years ago, and they're an advocacy group. They actively lobby in Washington, D.C., where they're headquartered, for legislation that will have a positive impact upon access television. They're also publish a quarterly magazine called Community Television Review, and then there's a newsletter that comes out 4 times a year. And it's an organization that has really grown a lot. When I was in San Francisco, there were almost 1,000 people that attended this conference. And I would say that most of the people that were there were people that were just starting up access in one form or another. And it was kind of interesting to me to find that there were lots and lots of people that were coming to me and saying, oh, Fayetteville Open Channel, I've heard of Fayetteville Open Channel. You guys are successful, how do you do it? And I think I spent more time actually just talking to people about, well, we do this with our workshops, and our board of directors is formed this way, and this policy about this. Just kind of nuts and bolts
yeah.
questions about how you operate this thing of access television. And it was a very interesting experience for me to go out and talk to people from all over America.
So the NFLCP is a sort of a I'm not sure what the right word is to use for it, but it's the place that people who want to start up a public access television station can go to for their initial information.
That's right. They have a number of publications on how to promote your programs, how to get your franchise set, how to train volunteers, a lot of things. In some ways, some of this stuff is common with lots of nonprofit agencies. I mean, you're always having to worry about fundraising. You're having to worry about working with volunteers. Those are common to other nonprofit groups, but it's the medium of television, which we're all about here,
right.
and it's sharing that kind of information as well.
Well, while you were out there in San Francisco, you took some video,
Yes.
and I'd like to show our viewers.
Okay, well,
what
we
it
can
was
roll
you-
that and kind of chat while we're seeing it here.
Some of
Now,
our viewers may see some familiar faces out
well,
there,
there's
too,
at
I
least one
think.
familiar face I think we'll see here. Now, this was all shot with my little home half-inch kind of thing.
There's Deep Dish
Deep
TV.
Dish TV. Now, there's a group of folks from New York City, there they are now, who got together the first satellite distribution for access television. And there were 16 programs that came out, and Fayetteville Open Channel was the very first access programming on this thing, on this series. And George Stoney, the
look
father, there's Mr. Michael
There's
Barr
Mike
there,
Barr.
who,
Hello, Mike.
well known here in Fayetteville, and
He's
as
in
you can
Providence,
see,
Rhode Island
there
now.
he goes, right, doing what Mike does best. Yeah, Mike's with the Providence school system, making big dollars up in Rhode Island and
Teaching video. He's
Teaching video, that's
teaching
right.
the kids how
Yeah.
to make their own shows.
All right. Here's now this looks impressive, but I guarantee you this food was all gone within about 3 minutes. Okay, there's the glitch we were waiting for.
Okay.
And we should have some more programming immediately after this.
Yes. I'm sure it'll pop up there in just a moment. That's what public access TV is all about, isn't it?
Well, it tends
It's not
to be.
professional.
Yeah. Now there was a exhibit area, and there were some vendors who manufacture and sell different types of video equipment. I believe we're looking at a kind of a super sophisticated character generator there. That's about as much video as the city of San Francisco that I actually got was on that monitor there. I didn't get out that much. I was in meetings and seminars and so forth most of the time I was out there. But it was gratifying to see that there were commercial vendors that were willing to come in and bring their wares in to share with the people in the cable business. I think that that there are the cable industry is a real niche here that television manufacturers are starting to address. What we're looking at here are some of the apparatus for inserting commercials in on, say, a local origination station, or, for example, here in Fayetteville, when we see CNN and USA Network and a couple of the other satellite services that Warner brings us, we see local commercials on there through this business called Target Vision. And Target Vision would use something similar to this to play their commercials in.
So they take a tape out and plug a new one in
Right,
with the
you're going to see
new
this
commercials.
machine here down at the bottom. Now it's going up and it's going to grab a tape out of that rack of tapes there, and then it'll carry it back down
To what they call the head end.
Yeah, this is this would be at the head end, which is where the cable programming is pumped out to the community. This is a similar kind of device here that it's all very sophisticated. It's all computer controlled and very sophisticated stuff. Now there's George Stoney from NYU, who we talked about earlier, the father of access television. I don't think he's embarrassed about that title. And he's talking to Sue Buskey, and Sue is the executive director of the NFLCP. This is a display of some of the T-shirts for the past 10 conferences that the NFLCP has had. The second one, incidentally, was in Austin, Texas. Okay, I think we're about coming to the end. There we are.
Here we are.
Of our video. I wish I had had more time to actually go around and do interviews with people. That was my grand intention of carrying my video equipment out there with me, was to be able to go around and talk to people and get interviews and so forth. But when you get into this thing, it gets so hectic that you're just running from room to room and on the one hand, you're trying to soak up all this information, and on the other hand, you got people that are asking you, and
Got to spew it forth.
yeah, it's an amazing thing. I've been a member of the NFLCP for, I think, 6 years, but this is actually the first national conference that I've gone to, and I was really glad that I attended.
Well, it was the 10th conference, so it was a kind of a stepping stone or a milestone, I should say.
Definite milestone.
And I think it was interesting, some of the memorabilia they had set up there. There was one T-shirt that probably wasn't very easy to see on the video footage, but it was, I think, the second national conference, and it had an armadillo on it with its tail was a cable hookup.
Right. That probably is the classic T-shirt out of the whole 10 years so far.
Well, I know the main reason for having the NFLCP conference is to get together with other public access people to discuss the woes and tribulations and to just find out better ways to do things.
Right. Yeah, and it's very useful for that. Again, I think I was very gratified that Fayetteville Open Channel was recognized as one of the real leaders in access television. I think the fact that we are independent and a nonprofit and have been that way all along really kind of puts us in the forefront, because as I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of cable-run access centers that are now going over to nonprofit status. And of course, these people had lots of questions to ask about how we're set up and how things are done here.
Well, a very active independent producer and volunteer here at FOC, Catherine Sherrills, conducted a telephone survey to complete her master's thesis. And she and her helpers asked a random sample of cable subscribers about their viewership of the public broadcasting service and FOC. Larry, I was able to catch Catherine for a few minutes this morning to talk with her about that survey. So why don't we stop and look at that now?
Okay.
Catherine, what gave you the idea of conducting this survey?
Well, I wanted to finish my master's thesis. That was the number one reason. I went to the University of Mississippi in 1980 and 1981, and they gave me 6 years to finish my thesis, so at about 5.5 years, I started looking around for something to do. But of course, I am interested in Open Channel, and it had been a few years. I think 1983 was the last time we had any kind of a market survey done. And I was just interested. I felt like Open Channel had changed a lot in those 2 or 3 years, and that probably we had more viewers and all. So it was a subject I was interested in, and it fit in with my thesis, so I did.
Well, would you mind briefly explaining for the viewers the process you used first to determine the survey form, and then second, how you got your sample survey of cable subscribers?
Mm-hmm. Well, it would have been wonderful if I could have just done a market survey, that is, ask the respondents what programs they watched, what programs they liked, and things like that. But that just didn't really fit in with journalism in my degree. So I got a lot of different theses and dissertations from interlibrary loan at the university, and really kind of the way I came up with the form is I found another survey that had been done in Atlanta, Georgia, by a woman named Vicki Lynn Crawford, who had looked at the uses and gratifications of public access viewing, and that's the way that
Public access. It was
public access in Atlanta. And so that not only gave me a form in which to put my survey, it also lets, in my thesis, lets us compare a small town to a large town or a large city in public access viewing. However, Atlanta's access had only been established a few months, so the comparisons are kind of weak because we've been here almost 7 years.
Right, so you basically used her form with some modifications.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I did is I polled about 15 people locally to ask them why they watched Open Channel, and then out of those I pulled 4 statements. The 4 statements were to see people I know on TV. These are the things that the reasons they said they watched Open Channel. To see people I know on TV, to see locally produced programs, to watch local government without having to go to the meetings. And so those are some of the things that I got from asking people around here why they watched.
Okay, and then what about getting the sample survey? The
names to call. Well, actually, I didn't get names. I got telephone numbers, but Warner Cable was very good in helping me get a sample to call, and I drew a random sample of 400 people, and I got 80% completion. So that's in statistics, that's supposed to come down to saying that my results will apply to all subscribers in Fayetteville, plus or minus 5%.
Okay, and when you say Fayetteville, you really mean all of the communities served by Warner Cable.
Yeah, we picked up, I think, 2 or 3 viewers in Greenland and a couple in Farmington, but none in Elkins. It just so happened
that's just
that
how the
it
random sample ended up being. Okay. Well, how long did it take to make all those phone calls and then compile the information?
Well, I gave myself a month to do it because several reasons I cut off there is that it was May. It happened to be May, and a lot of people were leaving town, so a lot of our sample was students. And so the closer we got to the end of May, the more I started hearing the phone has been disconnected and things like that. So it took about a month, and I had 6 or 7 people helping me out.
And was that working basically every night or
Yes,
every day?
Well, every weeknight from 6 to 9.
So
But I want to say that the people in Fayetteville, I got a very high completion rate, and the people of Fayetteville, you know, of course, you're bound to get a couple of people, I don't want to talk to you, Slam, and all that. One thing was real funny. I had one woman say, oh, could you hold on a minute? There's someone at the door, and she never came back. So I don't know whether she actually forgot me or whether that was just a ploy, but anyway, in general, people were real good about responding, and I think that says something about Open Channel, and I think it also says something about having a college community.
So once you got all the information, what happened? I mean, how long did it take you to pull it all together?
Well, for anyone out there who's thinking that they might want to do statistics on a personal computer, let me tell you, you don't. I messed around with my Apple IIe for a while, thinking I could do the number crunching on that. But fortunately, I found some people who helped me do it on a mainframe computer, and I was able to get it out pretty fast. But it took about a month of messing around to get the results, and then it took me another 2 or 3 weeks to finish writing the thesis.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, what were some of the most interesting responses, or most surprising, or unique in some way or another?
Well, of the individual responses, there's not that much that stands out, but as far as the results,
well, that's what I mean.
Yeah, right. I was amazed that nearly 70% of the Fayetteville viewers watch Open Channel, and 3/4 of those watch at least once a week. Now, of course, we don't have anything about how long they watch, but the thing about it is that public access is not something you turn on at 7 o'clock and you watch until 10.
Right.
These days, I'm not sure anything is. I'm not sure network is. I'm not sure any other cable services are, because there's so much there to choose from that people just generally don't tend to stick with one thing. But just watching public access is considered viewing in this survey and in every survey I looked at, because public access just is kind of a sometimes thing, you know.
So even just flipping channels and stopping to look at something on Open Channel, even for just a few minutes, is considered viewing.
That's considered viewing, and as a matter of fact, the overwhelming majority of people, when I asked them how they found out about programs on Open Channel, it was by flipping channels. And so they're flipping by and they see something that interests them, and they stop and take a look.
Well, earlier on, you said something about how you are very interested in Fayetteville Open Channel, and you are very active here. For that reason, was it at all hard for you to maintain your objectivity?
Oh yeah, it was hard at times. I think I did a real good job of doing it, but especially when people would start to comment about the quality of public access, of Open Channel. In general, people really liked the programming, they liked the idea, they liked the fact that you could see local government without going to the meetings and all that. But there were a whole lot of comments about the quality. Now, because I was trying to stay objective, I couldn't really say, well, now, do you mean this or do you mean this? But I think the complaints about quality were pretty evenly divided between those who don't really understand public access. They don't realize that we can't look like Miami Vice because we don't have millions of dollars worth of equipment. We're dealing with very inexpensive and very run-down equipment at this point. But I think also that there probably is some signal problem throughout Fayetteville. I have it at my house, and that's just something that's going to have to be worked out in time. And so I don't really know whether it's people who don't understand what public access is, or whether they're having trouble, receiving the signal.
Right. Okay. Well, have you defended your thesis yet, Catherine?
Yes, a couple of weeks ago. I don't know when this will be shown, but I defended it in July, and I was scared to death to go there, and it really turned out pretty well.
What did your professors say about it?
Well, they honestly didn't know much about public access, but they were very interested in the field. And one of the professors said that he felt, well, he was being kind of picky about some of my footnotes and things like that, and he said that the reason he was being picky is that he felt like that my study might be the basis for a new round of research in public access community television.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah. It'd be great to see my name in somebody's footnote. That'd be wonderful,
Right.
you know.
Well, Catherine, you really are a prolific video producer. You do all kinds of things. You do short stuff, you do long stuff. You really do a lot of very creative things. And I'm curious. Do you think that you would have done so much stuff as you have done if the facilities and equipment that have been made available to you through Fayetteville Open Channel had not been available?
Oh no, there's not a doubt in the world. I remember when I was a teenager, I used to dream about making films and all, but I never had an idea of how one would go about that living in Arkansas, and I prefer to live in Arkansas. It's just, you know, public access and Fayetteville Open Channel is a unique opportunity for anyone who is at all interested in visual arts, and it's so easy to come here and be trained and work with people that you enjoy, and you know, if you were trained in school, well, you got grades to worry about, and then you got to get out and you got a job to worry about, you got a boss to please and all that. Whereas here you can really express yourself and learn at your own pace and all that. And of course the main thing is that the equipment's available at a ridiculously low price. And if it weren't for that, there would be no way I could do any of this.
Well, as an independent producer, what has been the most frustrating thing about working with and through Fayetteville Open Channel?
Well, for me, it's finding the time to do all the things I want to do. Now that my thesis is done, maybe I'll be able to get some more stuff on Open Channel. But actually, one of the things that I enjoy most about being associated with Open Channel, and not necessarily as an independent producer, but just association with Open Channel, is working with other people who are learning to do video, teaching workshops, and working on people's projects and things like that. And from the review of the literature that I did on public access, I've found out that this is quite common, but it still angers me because I don't know why. And that is that a very, very, very small percentage of access producers, of people that we bring in and train, end up producing anything. And like I say, it's widespread. It's throughout the nation. Wherever there is access, there are access producers who are being trained and then never seen again. And I'd like to try to get to the bottom of that, try to figure out what it is that we can do to make it better, or maybe just to justify it, I don't know. But we really need more people in here producing programs, and that's really the only frustrating part that I found.
All right. Well, I'm glad I caught you.
Yeah.
Thanks
it
a
was
lot.
fun. Bye.
Some of you viewers may have been phoned for that survey, and I hope that you found it interesting to hear what some of the results were. It is very gratifying that 70% of the people polled or called for the survey do watch Open Channel, and 50% more than once a week. Yeah. When you were out at the conference, did you pick up any other literature on audience measurement, Larry?
Well, audience measurement is a area that has become increasingly more active in access television, because everybody's always wondering, is anybody out there watching? And you know, we wonder that here at Open Channel as well. And Catherine's survey certainly validates the fact that people do watch Open Channel. In fact, when I shared a little bit of her survey results with the group out there, they were astounded that we had such a high visibility in the community. The NFLCP is in the process of putting together a publication that will deal with audience measurement. And the gentleman that's putting this together is a professor up at Western Michigan in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And he is probably checking his mailbox every day to see if Catherine has forwarded her results, because he was very interested in the type of survey that she conducted and in the results.
All right. Well, Larry, Fayetteville Open Channel is funded partially by the Warner Cable Communications Company. Our contract with them recently ended, and I'm sure a few of our viewers at least are interested in how the negotiations, the contract renewal negotiations have been going.
Well, I wish I could make a flat statement that we've settled everything and all that, but we really haven't. However, we're fairly close. I think in the next few weeks, people can be watching the newspaper and Fayetteville Open Channel to see a big announcement coming up. But I would like to say that the Warner people have been exceptionally fair-minded. The process of negotiations has gone very smoothly. Locally, Woody Bell, who's the manager of the cable operation here, has been 100% behind Fayetteville Open Channel. Now, it's not his decision, really, because this is, comes out of the corporate office out of Ohio. But he has been a real booster of Open Channel, and I think that's helped us immensely. The people from the corporate office have been very understanding about our needs. They actually went to the expense of sending a gentleman from the Washington, D.C. area in here to evaluate our equipment and to make a report as to what our needs really are. I think we can figure that we're going to come up with a fair deal from Warner Cable, and we'll be announcing that sometime, hopefully within the next month.
Good. I think that's real exciting, and it's a relief too.
Yeah.
Well, one of the major problems that FOC does face continually is fundraising.
Right.
And of course, we're doing the Focus Summer Festival this week to get people to call in and make pledges and donations to Open Channel. But what are some other fundraising efforts in the works now besides this festival this week?
Okay. Well, I think people ought to know what we're talking about when we say that we raise funds. Now, Warner, for the past 5 years, has been the single largest source every year of our revenue. And that ranges from 50% of our budget to maybe 70% of our budget this year. We operated last year on a budget of about $75,000 a year. Warner provided a little over $50,000 of it. So that meant the Fayetteville Open Channel had to go out and raise $20,000 plus bucks. And fundraising is very tough. There's a lot of worthy groups out there that need money, and Fayetteville Open Channel is heavily involved in several events that will be coming up over the next couple of months that are designed to bring a few dollars into the coffers of Open Channel. Even though we will have a new agreement with Warner Cable, that will not be the sole support of Fayetteville Open Channel. It never has been, and Warner is very interested in Open Channel having secondary funding sources, perhaps equaling what they would be giving us. And I would certainly be happy if we could attain that range as well. This week we're going to be doing what we're calling Summerfest, Focus Summerfest, and it's kind of a low-key thing. We're not going to be out here playing Love Me Tender on the guitar or tap dancing if people send in $50.
Or belly dancing.
Yeah. But what we're going to try and do is to bring in some special programming, and then we'll be showing some of our better programming from the past year or so, and just give people a broad idea of what Open Channel programming is and can be. So we encourage you to send in your money to Fayetteville Open Channel, 221 South Locust Street, or call us right now as we speak, 521-9870. Help us out with a contribution. Within a couple of weeks of this week, actually Labor Day to be specific, we are hoping to have a big benefit concert at the old Johnson Mill up in Johnson, Arkansas.
Or you might look at it as the new Johnson Mill, since it's been newly remodeled.
Newly renovated
and
old mill, right? It's very nicely fixed up, and we'll be having some announcements. Well, by the time this show is aired, we ought to have this all worked out pretty well. But I think we're going to have some very good entertainment. It's going to be a real exciting day, a real family-oriented event. Bring the family out, have a picnic, and hear some good music. Now, October, we will be conducting the 3rd annual Fayetteville Open Channel telethon, and this will be more like a traditional telethon where we'll be bringing in all kinds of people and all kinds of entertainment to encourage people to send money to Fayetteville Open Channel.
And the majority of the programming for that week will be live.
Live programming, that's right. Last year we went live from 4 different places in the community. From the old Open Channel location over on Dixon Street, from the University Continuing Education Center, from the Fayetteville City Hall, and from the Washington County Courts building, or actually the Hofbrau restaurant, which is next door to it. And we'll be doing something similar to that this coming October. So there's, this week, we've got the music event on Labor Day, and then the telethon coming up in October. And we need to have support from the community. We need to have money from the community. And we also, of course, do other activities here. We try and write some grants, and we try and do some productions that can bring in a few dollars. But we're looking for the broadest base of community support we can, because that's what we're all about.
Well, how successful has Open Channel been in getting businesses or individuals to underwrite programming? And it's possible that there are some businesses out there, some people who have businesses who might be interested in finding out a little bit more about what is involved in underwriting a program.
Right. Well, programs can be sponsored on Fayetteville Open Channel by a business or an organization. We don't have commercials as such, but we do operate under a similar policy as PBS, for example. So at the beginning of the program, you would see the following program is underwritten by or funded by X and X company. Some of the businesses in the area have been very good to us. I would certainly single out McBride Distributing, Bob McBride, and all the people over there as being one of the real supporters of Fayetteville Open Channel. We have had a number of excellent programs that they have contributed the money to produce the show. That's what underwriting is. It's the money that goes into making a show. And we welcome businesses or organizations in the area that want to be having, it doesn't have to be a weekly show, it could be just a one-shot deal, it could be a series, there's all kinds of different ways we can work it. But if anybody is interested, please call us at Fayetteville Open Channel during our normal business hours, and we'll talk to you about it.
And some other organizations that do utilize Fayetteville Open Channel, if not several times a year, then at least once a year, are the lawyers, the local lawyers group,
the Washington County Bar Association.
They have a Call Your Lawyer show about 3 times a year, I believe it is.
Yep.
And then there the insurance agents around have a Call Your Insurance Agent show that's on about the same number of times a year. And then the Lions Club has an annual auction of the air program that they contract with us to help them produce. And
right.
So there are there's that way to do something too with Open Channel. So you're actually seeing, your members are actually seeing, your organization's members are seen on television, and the community has someone to identify with your organization, which is very important.
Yeah. Let me just mention one real success story is the Humane Society. And they have been coming in during our Take 5 time. We do offer up to 5 minutes of free television every Tuesday and Thursday morning. You can come down and stand in front of the cameras and sing and dance and so forth. But the Humane Society has, for the past, since about January or so, come in once a week with some of the animals that are at the shelter down there. And their rate of pickup has gone from 19% to 40+%. Now, that's reflective of a lot of good public relations work that the Humane Society has been doing. But I think the fact that these animals are on here and people actually seeing dogs and cats that they might want has really helped them a lot.
Well, Larry, you know, we're talking about programming now, some of the things that have been seen on Open Channel and will be seen hopefully in the future. How is it determined what programming will be on Open Channel?
Okay, well, we have some programs that come from different sources. Our the highest priority for programming are programs that are made by independent producers in the community. These are people that are paying for their own shows out of the pocket, and if somebody comes in, they can use our equipment, they can use other equipment. It doesn't really matter. Their program will be played on Fayetteville Open Channel. Other programs come in from, say, a national service organization, such as the Exchange Club, for example. They had produced a 10-minute film which was transferred to videotape, and then members of the Exchange brought it down to Fayetteville Open Channel and said, can you play this? Well, certainly. We really like to have programs that come like this. We prefer to have a local person come in and do a little introduction, and perhaps they could give the time and date of their regular meetings as well. Then programs also come from other places.
Is there a fee for someone to show a
Oh,
program?
absolutely not. Nobody's ever paid a dime to show a program on Fayetteville Open Channel. Other places in the community, such as the University Continuing Education Center, produce programs as a regular part of their business. That's what they do up there. They make television programs. They tape events that take place at continuing education. So they bring us programs and we put them on. There are a few restrictions. When you bring a program in, you sign this little waiver form that says basically that the material is not subject to copyright laws or is not libelous or slanderous or invasion of privacy and those sort of things. We don't want to have lawsuits over our programming. We never have, and we carry insurance and all this kind of thing. But you do have to sign this little form that puts the responsibility into their hands and not Fayetteville Open Channel's. But aside from that, if a program is brought in, it's usually going to appear a couple of weeks after it's brought in. It takes a couple of weeks to make the schedule up so that we can distribute it to the newspapers that are kind enough to run our schedule on a daily basis and also in their weekend papers.
So if an organization has a videotape that is particularly appropriate for a particular week, then they should try to get it into us a couple of weeks in advance.
Right.
Okay. Well, I work here as an office manager also, and I get frequent calls from people asking why we have so much liberal programming. And that, I think, is a valid question, and I'm wondering if you might be willing to answer that question for other people out there who have not called in but who have thought of that.
Yeah. Well, I assume by liberal you mean left of center on a political spectrum.
Yes.
And I think that the people in this community that are of that persuasion on a particular issue, say Central America is a very controversial issue nowadays, they just have more access to films or videos that have been made on this subject, and they know we're here and they bring it in. On the other hand, we've shown programs such as The Silent Scream, which certainly would fall on the other side of the spectrum. We don't take an editorial stance on the program content. And so the programs like that are brought in are just a reflection of how active and aware that particular point of view is within the community here.
So it's basically left up to the community members to to bring stuff to us and
Right.
to utilize us.
Right.
And because Open Channel does provide a service to the community, and we will show other things if they're brought to us or if they're produced here or whatever.
Right. Now, it's fair to say that we do have a technical standard that we adhere to also. We will show programs that are definitely not professionally made programs. That's not the point. But if for example, the audio is so poor on it that people can't be heard, or if the picture is not stable enough to play through our equipment, then we would reject it on technical grounds. But that's very rare, and we'll certainly play things down here that nobody else would. I mean, broadcast television has such stringent regulations, technical regulations, that, for example, a tape that's a half-inch tape, the home format half-inch, they're not going to play. But it's very common for us to.
Okay. Another question that I get asked frequently is how come the same shows are played over and over?
Well, we do repeat programs, and it's an advantage to be able to repeat programs. We try to get away from repeating them over and over again. But again, what we put on is a reflection of what people are doing here and what people bring us. And we run into certain periods during the year, and I think it's fair to say that the summer is one of them, where we don't have the kinds of programming available to put on. And so we are on 30 hours a week. It's hard to get that much material on
that's new
every week. We usually, I would say, would have 10 to 12 hours of new programming every week. Now, the way our schedule works is what you see at night in the 7 to 10 period, that Sunday through Thursday night, the next day you'll see that same block of programming in the same order. Now, this is an advantage
in the afternoon.
In the afternoon, right? Start at 12:30. This is an advantage to viewers, because if they miss the program at night, they might have a chance to catch it the next afternoon, or to certainly set their VCRs to capture it at that time. It also, what it does as far as we're concerned, is at night when all these different shows are played, some nights there may be 20 programs played on Fayetteville Open Channel. Now, some of them are only going to be 30 seconds long, but it's a program, and it's on a tape, and somebody has to physically put that tape in a machine and press some buttons to let it go out.
They're called cablecasters.
Cablecasters, that's right. Very important people, and we're fortunate that we have some volunteer cablecasters that come in and do this on a volunteer basis. That really helps out our meager staff. What we do in the afternoon is we have the night's programming on 2 tapes. So the daytime cablecaster just has to make 2 switches, as we call them, and then they can spend their time helping other producers or editing or making shows or fundraising, as we have to spend a lot of our time doing. So that has worked to our advantage. We do show programs by request. So let's say that there's a program and we've seen it a couple of times at night. Usually, if we can, we won't play that again. But if somebody calls up and they said, well, I missed that show, is there any way you can put it in? We try and accommodate them. One program that got a lot of requests was the speech that Ted Turner of the CNN and WTBS spoke in Fayetteville last spring at the Continuing Education Center, part of the Fulbright Symposium. And we showed that about 3 times and thought it was very significant that a gentleman of this caliber was speaking to people in Fayetteville. And we had calls to put it on again and again. And we accommodated those people. But somebody who's looking at our schedule, they're going to say, gee, they got Ted Turner on again. Well, there's a reason for it. And we make a real effort not to wear these shows out. But if you don't have them, you play what's around.
Well, besides more new programs and money and possible addition of more staff people, what comes next as FOC's greatest need?
Well, people that watch Open Channel right now have to put up with the fact that we're working with some somewhat antiquated and well-used video equipment.
Does that mean worn out?
That means worn out and a half. And the stuff we've got here is really being held together with Scotch tape and paper clips, and equipment is probably our biggest need. We hope that in this negotiation with Warner Cable that they're going to be able to help us with that. But there's always a need to replace what comes in, and much of the stuff that's being used here today to make this show is 6 years old. And in television, that's a very, very long time, particularly when you have to remember that our programs are made by amateurs, and they don't always know how to use the equipment at its best capacity. And I'm not saying that people are abusive of the equipment, they're just not as familiar with it as a television engineer.
And they're not as familiar with how to make something that doesn't look so great look as good as it possibly can.
Right. Television equipment has gotten a whole lot friendlier, to use a computer term. It's much easier to use, it's much more automatic, and the quality is a lot better for the dollar you get. $10,000 a few years ago would not buy you a very good camera. $10,000 today will buy you a very good camera. So there's a great opportunity really in Access to get involved in some of the new formats that are available, the half-inch home format, perhaps even the new 8mm video format that's coming out. These are some things that I think Open Channel is obligated to at least look at, because if we're trying to get television into the hands of the people, we need to make it as simple as we can. And we don't want to have people having to become video engineers in order to make a show. So equipment, particularly the kind of equipment that average people are going to be able to come in and check out and go out and have some success with it. This is what we need, and this is what we hope to get.
Okay, Larry, last question. What do you think are the most important reasons that FOC deserves the support of the communities served by Warner Cable, those being Fayetteville, Elkins, Greenland, and Farmington?
Right. Well, I think the thing that's unique, certainly there are a lot of needy organizations, a lot of worthwhile charities, activities of various sorts that go on in the community that deserve the support of the community. I think what differentiates Fayetteville Open Channel a little bit is that we are an organization that can help all of these people. By coming in here and appearing on Fayetteville Open Channel or making a program, different organizations and individuals are able to get their message out. There are 14,000 plus people on the cable system here. There's an average of 2.7 people per household, or however you want to figure it. But what it comes down to is a big chunk of Fayetteville is able to watch the cable and watch, consequently, Fayetteville Open Channel. So when somebody makes a program here, a lot of people have the opportunity to see it. And I think that's the one thing that, if people can remember, that we are here to help all organizations, not just liberal organizations, not just conservative organizations, not just the Humane Society, but all organizations. And consequently, I think if people recognize that and support us simply with a $10 membership. We've got 14,000 people on the cable. If all of them gave $10, we would be well funded.
And we would be able to offer more services to the members of the community.
Right.
And by the way, speaking about a donation to Fayetteville Open Channel, those of you who do phone in a pledge to Fayetteville Open Channel this evening, if your pledge is $10 or above, you will automatically receive a membership with Fayetteville Open Channel, which is good for 1 year. Larry, thank you so much for the very informative discussion of public access TV.
Do I get my clock radio now, or pick it up on the way out?
No free gifts, but when we give it to you. And thank you, Larry, and thank all of y'all for joining us. I hope that you've learned something about public access TV, and you are welcome to call Open Channel if you have any other questions. Hope you'll join us next time.